Joining us on the line right now is Peter Brookes, Senior Fellow for the National Security Affairs at the Heritage Foundation, all-around good guy. Thanks for joining us here this morning, Peter.
Good to be with you.
Listen, we want to start by talking about the situation in Iraq. And look, I know a little bit about your background, and you did some time at the CIA, so you know what it is to gather intelligence and to take that intelligence and then try to interpret the raw information and get a good sense of what's going on in the ground in the situation.
Yeah.
I'm getting the sense that the Obama administration and the current iteration at the CIA, that they don't have a good sense of what's going on inside Iraq, that they don't have the resources or the intelligence they need. And I point to the fact that 14, 15 hours ago, there were a whole slate of stories saying we may have to put boots on the ground to take care of the situation on Mount Sinjar, which is a humanitarian crisis. And we don't really want to have combat troops there, but for humanitarian reasons, we may need to put boots on the ground. Then they got a few people up there and looked around. They said, the situation's not at all what we thought it was. Actually, we're not going to need to do that at all. A lot of people who were on the mountain have gotten off the mountain. That smacks to me of not having any good intelligence.
Well, intelligence is tough, as you know, Brian. I mean, I often equate it to putting together, a jigsaw puzzle, and you don't know exactly what the final picture is going to look like. You haven't seen the cover of the box, and sometimes you don't have all the pictures or all the pieces. Sometimes you have pieces from other puzzles. So it is tough, in fairness to the professionals out there that are trying to do this every day. But I share that concern with you. I mean, you remember going back several months where the president talked about ISIS, this terrorist group that's causing all the problems there. He called them the junior varsity, the JV. So I'm kind of worried about if we really have a handle on this, and once again, we're caught in a crisis. Now, in fairness to the intelligence community, they may have been telling the president all along about these problems, and the president and his administration decided to deal with them in one way that wasn't successful, and then we end up in a crisis. So it could be not only an issue of intelligence having good information, which is always tough, and we probably have less intelligence there, assets there, since we pulled out in 2011 in Iraq, but it also could be a matter of policy, bad policy, or policy where, you remember, intelligence is judgment, and the president and his team could come and say, yeah, I see the same stuff you're seeing, but I'm seeing it differently. So there's a lot of questions out there.
People can look at the same facts and come out different. But let me ask you this question, not to drag you too far afield, because I want to get back to Iraq. There is a story out there that some 20 watchdog organizations are now calling for the resignation or the removal of John O'Brennan as the director of the CIA. That they say there have been a series of problems out there, that the agency has failed in many, many ways, especially in the area of transparency, and has acted badly. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I didn't see that story, so I'm not sure what they think the problem is. Now, once again, it seems like the CIA, as somebody who worked there, they're always getting hit over the head for stuff they miss, but they never get any, thanks for the stuff that they do well. So, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what they're calling for here. I mean, I think there is some concerns based on, even John Brennan said earlier this year that he didn't feel ISIS was this major threat in a speech in Washington. So, yeah, I mean, there's reasons to be concerned, and there's reasons that we should have Congress looking at these issues. We have an intelligence committees in both the House and the Senate that should be doing strong oversight of the intelligence community as well as the CIA to see if they're doing their job up to snuff.
Our guest is Peter Brookes of Heritage Foundation, talking about Iraq. But I want to zoom out a little bit here. ISIS, as I think everyone acknowledges, is a spin-off of or inspired by the Al-Qaeda terrorist network, and the president won re-election under the suggestion that Al-Qaeda is on the run. If you look at how he handled or mishandled Syria and the growth of ISIS now into Iraq and threatening all the good work that we did there, and you look at Libya being a mess and other areas where Al-Qaeda seems to not be on the run, can we reassess that statement now?
Well, it was kind of interesting when the president said Al-Qaeda was on the run. This was at the end of the Bush surge, when he first came into office and was moving into the 2012 election, and we had Benghazi. I mean, Libya's a mess. I mean, Al-Qaeda is not really on the run. It's on the rise. And there's increasing concern about it, whether you're talking about North Africa, whether you're talking about the Middle East. There's even some concern now in parts of Southeast Asia, which was a major problem after 9/11. So, yeah, I mean, this definitely runs counter to the narrative that the administration was trying to put out there. And the question was, Are they in denial of the threat? Is this going to keep us safe? Are they doing everything they need to do to protect not only our interests overseas, but our interests at home?
Well, and given that, the president, by the way, keeps saying that it wasn't even his idea to pull the troops out of Iraq. I mean, at some point, this administration, and by the looks of the polls, the people are starting to blame directly this administration for the disintegration of our policies in the Middle East. Listen, I understand there's politics, and this town thrives on politics. At this point, though, instead of pointing the finger of blame, I'm more concerned about our safety. And is our safety at risk now as ISIS and other al-Qaeda spinoffs continue to grow and gain power, in your opinion?
I feel it's increasing. I feel the threat that is emanating, has emanated out of Syria now into Iraq. ISIS has us in the crosshairs. I mean, in fact, in a shameless plug, we're going to have an event at Heritage today on exactly on this issue, and Steve Hadley, former Bush National Security Advisor, will be with us to talk about this. So, and I think C-SPAN's going to cover it, so that'll be, people can check it out or check it out online later. But the fact of the matter is in my view, is that ISIS has us in the crosshairs. They're not only talking about a caliphate that spans Syria and Iraq. They have said that they will raise the al-Qaeda flag over the White House. They are we know that they have training camps in Syria and perhaps in Iraq now for training foreign nationals or foreign fighters to go back to the native lands and undertake the acts of terrorism. That includes Americans. We believe there's more than 100 Americans fighting with ISIS today, more than 3,000 Europeans. And you see people it's people from maybe 70 to 80, 90 countries that are actually have gone to Syria and Iraq to fight with ISIS. Yeah. And those people could return at some point. And so it's actually in a way it's probably a global threat. Not only us, not only Europe, not only the Middle East, but I think it also spreads. We've seen foreign fighters from Australia and Southeast Asia there, and as well as from places like Chechnya. Yeah. So this is really turning into a global threat. And it's something we have to be very, very concerned about.
Very quickly, I want to weigh in on the situation in Ukraine, because there's this convoy. It's now described as a convoy of some 280 trucks that is moving from Russia into Ukraine. We really don't know what's in it. They say it's humanitarian aid. Yeah. Sounds like it's going to be a flashpoint. Any thoughts?
Yeah, is it beans or bullets? No. The Ukrainians aren't going to let it in. The Russians have been changing course and are trying to get in. Remember, the pro-Russian rebels are really taking it hard now from the Ukrainian troops. This whole insurgency may fold. I think Putin has got to make some serious decisions about what he's going to do. If the insurgency folds, he might be out of luck in Ukraine. Of course, he's got 45,000 troops across the border that could certainly go into eastern Ukraine and seize territory.
All right.
Peter Brookes, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
I like it when we say the guest's name at the same time.
Let's do it again. Peter Brookes.